Grandpa's construction company goes to me. I'm the oldest, my sister declared as we sat down for Thanksgiving. You never even worked there. Dad raised his glass. To the new suit. I just smiled. Then my corporate attorney appeared in the doorway. Miss Peterson, your grandfather's 2020 stock transfer gave you 94% controlling interest. The whole room fell silent. I was 7 when I first understood that love in the Peterson family came with conditions written in invisible ink. Grandpa Chen owned Peterson-Chen Construction, a $47 million commercial building company he'd built from a single pickup truck in 1982. The company name itself told the story. He'd married my grandmother, Patricia Peterson, and merged their worlds into something bigger than either could build alone. By the time I was born, they had 180 employees across Colorado and Wyoming. My sister Victoria was the golden child from the moment she emerged 3 years before me. First grandchild. Photogenic. Outgoing. The kind of child who could work a room at company picnics, shaking hands with subcontractors while wearing a tiny hard hat. Mom would beam. She's a born leader. I was the quiet one. The one who brought books to job sites. The one who asked Grandpa too many questions about load-bearing calculations instead of smiling for photos. Dad worked as the company's operations manager, a position he'd held for 23 years, always one step below the executive team, always resentful about it. Sarah's too cerebral. I overheard Mom tell Aunt Linda when I was 9. Victoria has the Peterson charisma. Sarah has, well, she'll figure something out. What I figured out was that I loved numbers the way Victoria loved attention. In high school, while Victoria was student body president and homecoming queen, I was captain of the math team. We took state championships 3 years running. Nobody from my family attended a single competition. They were always at Victoria's volleyball games, her debate tournaments, her leadership conferences. You're doing fine, honey, Mom said when I asked if anyone wanted to see my trophy. But Victoria needs our support right now. College applications are so stressful for her. Victoria went to CU Boulder on a partial volleyball scholarship. I got a full ride to MIT for mathematics. Dad's response, MIT? That's so far away. Why can't you just go to CU like your sister? Be part of the family. I went anyway. Boston was the first place I ever felt like I could breathe. My roommate, Jennifer Kim, was a computer science major from Seattle with a laugh that could fill a room. We stayed up late solving problem sets, debating the ethics of algorithmic trading, planning futures that didn't require us to shrink ourselves. Your family sounds exhausting, Jen said after I'd explained why I wasn't going home for Thanksgiving freshman year. They're just focused on Victoria. It's fine. It's not fine. You got into MIT. You're brilliant. And they act like you're a houseplant. I laughed, but something in my chest cracked open. Sophomore year, I started dating Marcus Webb, a quiet graduate student in structural engineering. Our third date was at a coffee shop where we spent 4 hours debating whether the Millennium Tower in San Francisco could be saved. He listened when I talked. Actually listened, asking follow-up questions, remembering details from previous conversations. You light up when you talk about load calculations, he said, smiling. It's beautiful. Nobody had ever called anything about me beautiful before. Back in Colorado, Victoria had graduated and immediately joined Peterson-Chen Construction as Special Projects Coordinator, a title Dad created for her. Her job seemed to involve posting company photos on social media and attending ribbon-cutting ceremonies. Grandpa called me every Sunday. These calls were my lifeline. How's the structural analysis course? He'd ask. Challenging. We're studying post-tensioned concrete systems. We're using post-tensioning on the Stapleton Medical Center project. I'll send you the engineering specs. You can see how theory meets reality. He was the only person who treated my brain like an asset instead of an eccentricity. Junior year, Grandpa's health started declining. Congestive heart failure, the doctors said. He had maybe 2 years, possibly 5 if he was lucky and careful. I need to talk to you about something, Grandpa said during one Sunday call. His voice sounded tired. Not on the phone. Can you come home for spring break? I flew to Denver that March. Grandpa picked me up at the airport himself, despite Mom's protests that he shouldn't be driving. We went to Pete's Kitchen, a 24-hour diner he'd been going to since 1985. Over patty melts and coffee, he slid a folder across the table. What's this? Stock transfer documents. I'm giving you 94% of Peterson-Chen Construction. I stared at him. Grandpa, I what? Why? Because you understand what I built. Victoria sees a stage. Your father sees a paycheck he thinks he deserves. You see a legacy that requires precision, integrity, and vision. He tapped the folder. You're 20 years old. You're studying structural engineering at MIT. You ask me about load calculations and project margins. You're the only one who's ever actually cared about the work itself. But Victoria is charming. Charm doesn't calculate stress loads or negotiate union contracts. Your father is angry. Anger doesn't build a company that lasts. He leaned forward. I've watched you, Sarah. Since you were little. You see patterns. You solve problems. You care about getting it right, not getting credit. My hands trembled as I opened the folder. The documents were already prepared, notarized, ready for signatures. What about Mom and Dad? Victoria? I'm leaving them generous cash inheritances. The house in Evergreen goes to your parents. Victoria gets $400,000. Your father gets $300,000 in his full pension. But the company needs someone who'll protect it, grow it, honor what it stands for. His eyes were fierce. That's you. They'll hate me. They'll hate you anyway, sweetheart. They've been teaching you to be small your whole life. This is me telling you, be big. We signed the papers that afternoon. Grandpa's attorney, Robert Feldman, witnessed everything. The stock transfer was structured as an irrevocable trust that would activate upon Grandpa's death. Until then, he retained voting control, but legally I own 94% of the company. Don't tell anyone yet, Grandpa advised. Let me handle the transition planning. When the time comes, you'll be prepared. I went back to MIT carrying a secret that weighed more than any textbook. The guilt was immediate and crushing. Every family phone call felt like a lie. Mom would talk about Victoria's latest company achievement. She organized the most beautiful client appreciation event. And I'd make supportive noises while knowing I held the company's future in trust documents locked in my Boston apartment. Jen noticed. You've been weird since spring break. What happened? I told her everything. She was the only person I could tell. Holy shit, she whispered. Your grandfather gave you a $47 million company? He gave me the responsibility for 180 people's livelihoods. That too. So what are you going to do? I don't know. Graduate. Learn. Try to be worthy of it. Senior year, I took every construction management and business course MIT offered. I did summer internships at Bechtel and Turner Construction, learning how the industry's giants operated. I graduated summa cum laude with degrees in civil engineering and management. Marcus proposed the day before graduation in the library where we'd met. I love your brain, he said, kneeling. I love your heart. I love how you see the world in calculations and care about every single number representing a real person. We got married that September in a small Boston ceremony. My family didn't come. We can't afford flights right now, Mom explained. And Victoria needs us here. She's being considered for a promotion. Grandpa came. He walked me down the aisle, tears streaming down his weathered face. Your grandmother would have loved this, he whispered. She'd be so proud. He died 6 weeks later. Heart failure, peacefully in his sleep. I flew home for the funeral, my grief a physical weight. The service was massive. Hundreds of employees, subcontractors, clients, city officials. Grandpa had built more than buildings. He'd built a community. Victoria gave the eulogy. She was polished, poised, hitting every emotional note. Grandpa Chen was a visionary, a leader, a man who built an empire with his bare hands. His legacy lives on in Peterson-Chen Construction, and I promise to honor his vision as we move forward. I sat in the second row, Marcus holding my hand, and said nothing. The will reading was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Robert Feldman, now 73 and still sharp as broken glass, handled everything. There are cash bequests, he explained to the assembled family in his downtown Denver office. And there's the matter of the company. Dad leaned forward. He'd been positioning himself as the natural successor for months, telling anyone who'd listen about his 25 years of service. The company's stock is held in an irrevocable trust, Robert continued. Established in March 2020. The beneficiary. Obviously it's split between the family, Victoria interrupted. Dad runs operations, I handle client relations. We'll make a great team. Robert's expression didn't change. The beneficiary of 94% of all company stock is Sarah Chin Peterson Webb. The silence was absolute. What? Dad's voice cracked. Sarah. Mom looked at me like I was a stranger. Victoria's face went through 5 emotions in 3 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, anger, calculation, rage. That's impossible, Victoria said flatly. She doesn't even work here. The trust was established in 2020, Robert repeated. Signed, notarized, and legally irrevocable. Sarah owns 94% controlling interest in Peterson-Chen Construction. The remaining 6% is held in a separate employee stock ownership plan. She didn't even visit. Mom's voice rose. Victoria's been working there for 5 years. Victoria organized the what? I spoke for the first time, my voice quieter than I intended. The social media posts. The client parties. Victoria's eyes narrowed. I've been building relationships. Representing the company. While you were off playing engineer in Boston. I wasn't playing, I said. I was learning how to run a construction company. Grandpa wanted someone who understood structural engineering, project management, contract negotiation, union relations. You manipulated him. Victoria shouted. You poisoned him against his own family. I had lunch with him. Once. He'd already made up his mind. Dad stood up, his face purple. This is theft. We'll contest it. No court will. Every court will uphold it, Robert said calmly. It's airtight. I've been practicing estate law for 47 years. This trust is unbreakable. Sarah. Mom's voice broke. How could you? After everything we've given you. What did you give me? The words came out sharper than I intended. You gave Victoria everything. Attention, support, belief. You gave me silence and disappointment wrapped in politeness. We treated you fairly, Dad insisted. You didn't come to my wedding. Mom flinched. We couldn't afford. Grandpa came. From the same city. On the same day. The truth of it hung in the air. Victoria's voice turned cold. Fine. You have stock. You don't have knowledge. You don't have relationships. You've never worked a single day in construction. You'll run the company into the ground in 6 months and then you'll come crawling back begging Dad to fix it. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I've spent the last 4 years preparing for this exact responsibility. 3 days later, I attended my first Peterson-Chen Construction executive meeting. The conference room went silent when I walked in. 8 executives, all men, all over 50, all staring at the 31-year-old woman who now controlled their careers. Gentlemen, I said, sitting at the head of the table. I'm Sarah Webb. I own 94% of this company. I have degrees in civil engineering and management from MIT. I've interned at Bechtel & Turner. I've studied this company's financials for 4 years. I opened my laptop. We're going to discuss the Stapleton Medical Center project. I have concerns about the post-tensioning specifications and the concrete pour schedule. The director of engineering, Tom Matthews, blinked. You've read the specs? I've read everything. The specs, the contracts, the union agreements, the insurance policies, the supplier contracts. I pulled up a spreadsheet. I've also noticed some irregularities in project accounting over the past 5 years. We'll address those separately. By the end of that meeting, I had their cautious respect. By the end of the month, I had their trust. The irregularities were worse than I'd suspected. Victoria's special projects coordinator role had given her discretionary access to client entertainment budgets, community relations funds, and marketing accounts. Over 5 years, she'd redirected $340,000 to personal expenses. Her apartment rent paid as temporary client housing, her car lease as a company vehicle, shopping trips as client gifts, vacations as networking conferences. Not illegal embezzlement. She'd been clever enough to structure everything as authorized expenses. But ethically catastrophic and financially devastating. I hired a forensic accountant. The full report was 127 pages. Dad had his own issues. As operations manager, he'd been approving overtime claims for his nephew, a foreman who was billing 80-hour weeks while actually working 40, the difference split between them. Over 3 years, $89,000. I sat in my office, Grandpa's old office which still smelled like his coffee, and cried. Not because I was surprised. Because I'd hoped to be wrong. Marcus found me there at midnight. Hey, come home. They stole from him, I whispered. From Grandpa. While he was dying. While he was trying to build something that mattered. I know. And they'll say I'm vindictive. That I'm the bad daughter ruining the family. Probably. He pulled me close. But you're also the granddaughter protecting his legacy. Both things are true. I gave them both a choice. Resign immediately with NDAs and no criminal charges, or face full prosecution and public scandal. Dad resigned. He told everyone I'd forced him out over minor bookkeeping disagreements. Victoria fought. She hired a lawyer, threatened to go to the media, called me every name she could think of. I released a carefully worded internal memo. After a thorough financial review, several executive positions are being restructured to better align with company values and fiduciary responsibilities. We thank all departing personnel for their service. Victoria's lawyer read the forensic accounting report and advised her to resign. She did in a scorched earth email to the entire company directory. I'm resigning because my sister has made it impossible for family to work at the company our grandfather built. She'd rather rule over strangers than share success with blood. I hope she's happy with her empire of ashes. The email hurt more than I expected. Thanksgiving 2023 was 3 years after Grandpa's death. I'd turned Peterson-Chen Construction around. 23% revenue growth, 2 major civic projects, expansion into sustainable building practices, industry awards for workplace culture and safety. Mom called in October. We should have Thanksgiving together. As a family. Why? I asked. Because we're family. We've had our disagreements, but it's time to move past them. What she meant, Victoria's money was running out. Dad's pension wasn't enough. They needed something from me. Hey, I said. My house. I'll cook. Marcus looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Why would you subject yourself to this? Because I need to know if there's anything left to save. I cooked for 3 days. Turkey, stuffing, green bean casserole, mashed potatoes, 3 pies. I set the table with Grandma's china, the set she'd left me in a codicil to her will that nobody had contested because it was just dishes. They arrived together. Mom, Dad, Victoria, and Victoria's new boyfriend, Trent, who worked in pharmaceutical sales and had no idea what he was walking into. The meal started civilly. We talked about the weather, about the Broncos, about Trent's job. Safe topics. Then Dad cleared his throat. Sarah, we've been thinking. It's been 3 years. Maybe it's time to bring family back into the company. Victoria's learned a lot. No, I said. You haven't even heard the proposal. I don't need to. The answer is no. Victoria set down her fork. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Grandpa would be ashamed of you. Grandpa gave me this company specifically because I'm not you. Girls, Mom interjected. Let's not. She stole my inheritance. Victoria's voice rose. Everything Grandpa built should have been mine. I'm the oldest. I worked there. You embezzled $340,000, I said quietly. Trent looked at Victoria. What? It wasn't embezzlement, Victoria snapped. They were authorized business expenses. That you authorized for yourself. For personal benefit. While Grandpa was dying. Dad jumped in. And you forced me out over minor accounting. You and your nephew stole $89,000 in false overtime claims. That's not minor. That's fraud. The room froze. You want to talk about family? I continued, my voice shaking. Where was my family when I took state championships in math? When I got into MIT? When I graduated summa cum laude? When I got married? I looked at Mom. You couldn't afford a flight to my wedding. But you could afford to rent a beach house for Victoria's 25th birthday 2 months later. Mom's face crumpled. We were trying to help her through a difficult time. I was always going through a difficult time. I was just quieter about it. The words poured out, years of pressure releasing. You taught me that love was conditional. That it had to be earned through being less, wanting less, needing less. And I learned the lesson so well that when Grandpa offered me unconditional belief, I barely recognized it. He turned you against us, Dad said bitterly. He saw me when you wouldn't look. Victoria stood up, her chair scraping. This is who you really are. Vindictive. Pooh. Grandpa's golden child who thinks she's better than everyone. I don't think I'm better, I said, and I meant it. I think I'm different. I think Grandpa needed someone who loved the work itself, not the status it provided. And I think you can't forgive me for being chosen when you spent your whole life assuming you would be. Grandpa's construction company goes to me. I'm the oldest, Victoria announced suddenly, her voice taking on a strange formal quality. As if we'd rehearsed this. As if this was the speech she'd been planning to give. What? I stared at her. Grandpa wanted me to have the company. He told me before he died. I'm announcing it now officially. Mom and Dad support this. She looked at them. Dad raised his wine glass, trembling slightly. To the new CO. The doorbell rang. I stood up, confused. I wasn't expecting anyone. It was Robert Feldman, my corporate attorney. Robert. I said. What are you doing here? You texted me, he said, looking equally confused. Said it was urgent. About the stock. Behind me, Victoria's voice was triumphant. See? Even your own lawyer knows. Robert walked into the dining room, saw the assembled family, and his expression shifted from confusion to understanding. Oh, he said. Oh, I see what's happening here. He set his briefcase on the table, opened it, and pulled out a folder. The same folder Grandpa had shown me 7 years ago at Pete's kitchen. Victoria Peterson, Robert said, his voice carrying the authority of 4 decades practicing law. Your grandfather's 2020 stock transfer gave Sarah Peterson Webb 94% controlling interest in Peterson-Chen Construction. This transfer was irrevocable, legally binding, and executed with full testamentary capacity. There is no provision, codicil, or verbal promise that supersedes this document. Victoria's face went white. Additionally, Robert continued, pulling out another document, I have here the forensic accounting report detailing $340,000 in misappropriated company funds during your employment. You resigned in lieu of prosecution. You have no claim, legal or moral, to any portion of Peterson-Chen Construction. The whole room fell silent. Trent pushed back from the table. Victoria, what the hell is he talking about? It's not, she's lying, they're all. I'm not lying, I said quietly. You stole from Grandpa's company. Dad stole from Grandpa's company. And when I gave you both the choice to leave quietly, you chose to spend 3 years telling everyone I was the villain. Dad stood up. We raised you. We gave you everything. You gave me nothing. The words erupted. You gave me scraps of attention when Victoria wasn't around to need it all. You gave me criticism dressed as concern. You taught me to be ashamed of being good at things you didn't value. You came to my life when it was convenient for you and abandoned it when it wasn't. Mom was crying now. We did our best. Your best wasn't good enough. I was crying, 2 years of grief pouring out. And the worst part is that I spent so long thinking I was the problem. That if I was just more like Victoria, more charming, more social, more palatable, then maybe you'd love me. It took Grandpa seeing me, really seeing me, for me to understand that the problem was never me. So this is revenge? Victoria's voice was hoarse. You get the company, the money, the power, and we get nothing? You get exactly what you earned, I said. Which is nothing. Robert cleared his throat gently. Sarah, I should clarify. I didn't actually receive a text from you. I looked at him confused. I received a text from a number claiming to be you, asking me to come immediately to discuss the stock transfer and bring all documentation. When I arrived and saw this scene, he gestured at the Thanksgiving table. I understood this was likely a setup. Someone wanted me to arrive with these documents to expose something. We all looked at Victoria. I didn't, she started. Your number's in my phone, I said slowly. From when we were kids. You knew Robert's contact information from the will reading. You texted him pretending to be me, hoping he'd show up and somehow validate your claim that Grandpa promised you the company. Victoria said nothing, but her face confirmed everything. So you invited yourself to my Thanksgiving, I continued, planning to announce you're taking over the company, expecting Robert to arrive with documents that would somehow support you. Except the documents prove the exact opposite. It should have been mine, Victoria whispered. I'm the oldest. I'm the one who... Who what? I asked. Who assumed? Who expected? Who felt entitled? Trent stood up. I think we should go. Yeah, Victoria said bitterly. Yeah, let's get out of here before Saint Sarah delivers any more speeches about how terrible we all are. They left. Mom and Dad followed without another word. Robert and I stood in my dining room looking at the ruins of Thanksgiving dinner. I'm sorry, he said. I should have called to verify before coming. No, I said. You did exactly what you should have done. You responded to what seemed like a client emergency. Are you okay? I looked at the table. Grandma's china. The turkey I'd brined for 2 days. The pies cooling on the counter. All the effort I'd put into hoping this could be something it wasn't. I don't know, I said honestly. After Robert left, Marcus held me while I cried. I kept thinking there'd be a moment, I said into his shoulder. Some moment where they'd finally see me and everything would click into place. Where love would just happen. The way it's supposed to. I know. But that's not real, is it? Some people don't have that kind of love to give. And wanting it doesn't make it appear. No, he said gently. It doesn't. 6 months later, Peterson-Chen Construction won the bid for Colorado's largest sustainable infrastructure project. A $340 million light rail expansion using cutting-edge green building techniques. The governor personally called to congratulate me. Your grandfather would be proud, she said. I thought about Grandpa. About that lunch at Pete's kitchen. About him saying, be big. Victoria sent me one email after the contract was announced. Congratulations. I hope it's worth what you lost. I thought about that for a long time. What I'd lost. The fantasy of a family that never existed. The hope of unconditional love from people who didn't know how to give it. The belief that if I was just good enough, small enough, quiet enough, I'd be worthy of their attention. What I'd gained. A company employing 240 people. Projects that would shape Colorado's infrastructure for decades. The ability to honor my grandfather's legacy. A husband who loved my complexity instead of asking me to simplify it. Friends who saw my strength instead of asking me to dim it. The math wasn't equal. It never is. I still hope sometimes that Mom will call and really ask how I'm doing. That Dad will acknowledge what he did wrong. That Victoria will see me as something other than the sister who stole her birthright. But I've learned to hold hope and reality in the same hand. To grieve what will never be while building what can be. To understand that love from some people will always be a table set for a feast that never comes. And sometimes on Sunday mornings, I drive to Pete's kitchen and order a Patty Melton coffee. I sit in the booth Grandpa favored, the one by the window with the torn vinyl seat, and I read through project proposals and engineering specs. The waitress knows my order now. Your grandfather used to sit right there, she told me once. He'd talk about his granddaughter the engineer. Said you were going to change the world. I'm just building things, I said. That's how you change the world, she replied. I think about that a lot. Last month I established the James Chin Scholarship Fund. $500,000 annually for underrepresented students pursuing engineering degrees. The first recipient was a quiet girl from rural Colorado who loved math and felt invisible. In the acceptance letter I wrote, someone once saw potential in me when I couldn't see it myself. Now I see it in you. Be big. I don't know if she'll understand what that means yet. But someday maybe she will. The company thrives. My marriage thrives. I'm building something that matters. But on Thanksgiving I still cook too much food. I still set the table with Grandma's china. And I still hope just a little that maybe this year will be different. It never is. And I'm learning slowly, painfully, that acceptance of that truth is its own kind of freedom. The room fell silent that Thanksgiving evening 3 years ago, but in that silence something shifted. Not reconciliation. Not forgiveness. Just the final, complete understanding that some distances can't be crossed, some wounds can't be healed, and some families exist only in the longing for what they could have been. I carry that silence with me. It's heavy. It's permanent. And it's mine. Just like the company. Just like the legacy. Just like the responsibility to honor what one man saw in a quiet girl who loved numbers and wanted more than anything to be worthy of being seen. I think I'm getting there. Some days I almost believe it.